I want to talk about something serious today. The image of God in man, what it means to bear that image, and the weight that comes from carrying it. Because this isn't a compliment. It's not a pat on the back. It's not God being polite to humanity. This is a high calling, and this is serious. You were made in the image of one who made everything, patterned after him, carrying a resemblance to him through the world. And most of us, Christians included, have never stopped to feel what this actually means. So that's what we're going to do today. Sit down with this, take it seriously, not because I want to lecture you about it, but because I don't think we can walk in what we are unless we know what we are. Let's start at the beginning. Genesis 1 verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." Now, most people read that and stop right there. They take the words, they feel something warm about being made in his image, and they move on. But let me ask you something. What does it actually mean to be made in the image of God? I had this conversation with a Muslim once, a while ago. He asked me, and honestly, I fumbled it. I didn't quite know what to say because most Christians, if you stop them in the street and ask them, they don't know either. They know the phrase, they don't know the substance. So let's slow down because the answer to this question matters more than almost any other question you could ask about yourself. God is spirit. As Jesus said, John 4, to the Samaritan woman at the well, God is spirit and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth. Now think about what that means for Genesis 1. If God is spirit, if there is no body, no form, no physical shape to God, then when he says, "Let us make man in our image," the resemblance can't primarily be physical. There's nothing physical to resemble. The image has to be something else. The image has to be the kind of thing God is, and God is spirit. So when God breathed into the dust of the ground, Genesis 2 verse 7, and the man became a living being, what he breathed in was the resemblance. Spirit into form. The body matters. The body is part of how the image gets expressed in the world, but the resemblance itself, the actual image, is spiritual. We are spirits that wear bodies, made in the image of the spirit who made us. Take that in, because once you see it, hopefully a lot of things will start making sense. You don't carry the image because of what you can do. You carry it because of what you are. So a child carries it, an unborn baby carries it, someone in a coma carries it, someone with severe disability carries it. You don't earn the image. You don't lose the image. The image is something you do. It isn't something you do. It's something you are. And this isn't my invention. This isn't a fresh take. The church has been working on this question for 2,000 years. And the deepest thinkers all kept landing in the same place. Calvin saw it plainly. He said the soul itself is the image of God. Not because the body doesn't matter, it does, but because the resemblance is spiritual, and the body is the place where that spiritual resemblance gets carried. Augustine said the same kind of thing centuries earlier. He located the image in the soul, in our capacity to know God, to love him, to remember him. Later, Aquinas built on that, and Luther sharpened it. Calvin pulled it all together. The serious theology of the church has consistently said that the image is what is in what we are, not what we can do. So when I say that the dignity of the image lives in your being, not in your function, I'm not making it up. That's centuries of careful thinking, and it matters because that changes how you measure yourself. If your worth depends on what you can do, your intelligence, your strength, your usefulness, your appearance, then the day you can't do those things, your worth is gone. That's a trap that many of us have lived in at some point. Measure yourself by what you can produce, and the day you stop producing, you're nothing. But if your worth depends on what you are, if you are a spirit patterned after the spirit who made you, then nothing can take it away from you. Not failure, not weakness, not age, not anyone's opinion, not your own opinions on a bad day. You bear the resemblance of the Most High God. And that's not a small thing. That's a starting point. That's a foundation underneath everything else we're going to look at today. So here's where it starts to open up. Because once you see that the image is spiritual, that we are spirits patterned after the spirit who made us, something else becomes possible. something that no other framework can quite reach. Family. Look at Romans 8, verse 15. The Spirit you receive does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you receive brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba. We cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Read that carefully. The Spirit himself bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. Spirit, recognizing spirit. Family, recognizing family. That's not a metaphor. That's not poetry. That's the actual mechanism Paul is describing. The Spirit of God speaks to the Spirit in us, and what he speaks is son, not servant. Not creature, not subject, son. And the only reason that recognition can even happen is because we are the kind of being that can be recognized. We share a family resemblance. The image is what makes adoption coherent. Now, I need to be careful with this word adoption because we use it loosely these days. People adopt rescue dogs, they adopt animals at the zoo. There's a kindness in that, a real one. And God made all of it. And he cares for the animals. Jesus says, not a single sparrow falls to the ground without the Father knowing. And here's what I want you to see. God could have done that with us. Yeah, he could have rescued us. He could have sustained us. He could have cared for us at a distance. Watched over us in a way that a kind owner watches over an animal in his care. He had every right to. We were the ones who broke the covenant. We were the ones who walked away. He owed us nothing. And he could have left it. He could have left it right there. Many religious systems describe exactly that kind of God. A master who cares for his creatures. An owner who looks after what belongs to him. A being who provides, who sustains, who protects, but who never lets you forget that you are the creature and he is the master. That's the adoption in a rescue the animal sense. It's real, it's kind, and it's not what he did. He went further, way further. The adoption Paul is talking about in Romans 8 is something else entirely. This is legal adoption, family adoption, the kind where an outsider gets brought into the household and made an heir, given a family name and placed in the line of inheritance, spoken of forever after as a son with all the rights and standing that come with that. You can love a rescue cat, and you should. You don't make it your heir. You don't give it your surname. You don't write it into your will alongside your children. Why not? It's not because the cat isn't precious. It's because the cat is not the kind of being that can carry the family resemblance. Jesus said it himself in Matthew 10. You are worth more than many sparrows. There is a hierarchy in creation. And humans stand at the top of it, not because we earned it, but because God placed us there, because we bear his image. And that's exactly what makes the gospel kind of adoption possible. Adoption requires a being that can answer, that can recognize, that can say Father back to the Father who claims them, a being that can carry the family name with understanding of what that name means. And you are that kind of being. That's the gravity of being family, not pet, not creature, not subject, son. That's why the Spirit can speak into your spirit, can speak son into your spirit, and your spirit can answer back, Father. The mechanism only works because the image was already there, because we are spirits patterned after the Spirit who made us. And the Spirit can recognize spirit. The image is what makes the family possible. And what God did with us was not to rescue the animal kind of adoption. It was far more intimate than that. Paul doesn't just say we are children of God. He uses a specific word, Abba. Abba is Aramaic. It's an intimate word. It's the word a child uses for their father. It's family language, not protocol language, not religious language, family language. This is what the Spirit speaks into your spirit, not master, not Lord, not Lord in the sense of a distant ruler, Father, and not even Father in a formal sense, Abba, the word a child speaks when they crawl into their father's lap. And then Galatians 4. Galatians 4 says the same thing from another direction. God sent his Son that we might receive adoption to sonship, so that you are no longer a slave, but God's child. No longer a slave, God's child. That distinction matters more than I can put into words, because every other system on earth that talks about God in some form can offer you a relationship of some kind. They can offer you a master, they can offer you a teacher, they can offer you a distant figure to revere, they can offer you a system to submit to. What they cannot offer you is family. You cannot be adopted into a household if you do not share the family likeness. And the image of God, that spiritual resemblance we walked through a moment ago, that is a family likeness. That is what makes an adoption possible in the first place. This is why the gospel can do something that no other framework can do. It can take you home. Not just forgive you, not just teach you, and not just regulate your behavior. Take you home. Put the family name on you and hand back their inheritance. Because the image was already there. The Spirit recognized his own resemblance in you. And the Father said, that one is mine. Sit on that. So far, we've seen two things. What the image is, a spiritual resemblance to the Spirit who made us, and what the image makes possible, adoption into the family of God. Now there's a third thing, and it's one that gets missed most often. The image bearer was made to do something. Go back to Genesis 1, verse 26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and over all the wild animals. Read it slowly. The same sentence that establishes the image establishes the commission. They are not two separate ideas. They are one breath. Let us make man in our image so that they may rule. The image was never just an identity. It was always an identity attached, with a job attached. You were patterned after God. And what does God do? He rules. He orders chaos into beauty. He fills emptiness with life. He brings light into darkness. He speaks and things become. You were made to do the same thing. Not in the same scale, obviously. We're not creating universes, but the pattern is the same. The image bearer was placed in creation to do what the one whose image he carries does: to rule, to order, to cultivate, to name, to represent. The last word matters. That last word matters, represent. Because here's what an image was in the ancient world. Ancient Near Eastern kings did this all the time. Egyptian pharaohs, Assyrian rulers, Babylonian emperors. When a king couldn't physically be present in a region of his kingdom, he would place an image of himself there, a statue, a standard. Sometimes that said, the king is present here. Sorry, something that said the king is present here, even when his body isn't. The image represented the king to that part of the kingdom. The first rulers of Genesis would have heard this practice as background music. That's exactly what humanity was made for. The Creator placed his image, his resemblance inside creation, so that wherever an image bearer stood, the character of the one whose image he carried would be present, through their justice, through their mercy, through their truth, through their care for what he had made. You were made to carry God's character into this world. Sit with that for a second. You were made to carry God's character into the world, into your home, into your work, into every place you stand, not as a performance, not as a religious duty, as a natural overflow of what you actually are. That's what dominion means. Not exploitation, not domination, not stripping creation for what you can get. Representation. Carrying his character into a place he has chosen not to physically occupy and letting the character be seen through you. Now look at what happened. Adam dropped it. That's a short version of Genesis 3. The image bearer was given a commission and he failed it. The image got distorted, not erased, and the representation broke down. Humanity went on carrying the image, but the character we were meant to represent got tangled up with the character of the one who deceived us. And for thousands of years, the commission sat there, broken, dropped, waiting. Did you catch what just happened there? The image didn't get erased at the fall. It got distorted, which means there was something still there to redeem, something still there to pick up again. The commission wasn't cancelled, it was waiting for someone qualified to recover it. And the last Adam picked it up. Matthew 28, verse 18. Jesus on the mountain in Galilee, looking at his disciples just before he goes back to the Father. He says, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." Listen to that. All authority. The authority that was given to the image bearers in Genesis 1, that they dropped in Genesis 3, has been picked up by an image bearer, the one who is the image. And he picks it up, not just for himself, but for everyone who is found in him. Because the next verse is, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations." The commission is back on. The image bearer rules again, not in his own strength, in the strength of the one whose image he carries. So this is what you are, made in the image, brought into the family, commissioned to represent. Three things. One picture, the full weight of what humanity was made to be. Sit with that for a moment. If this is the kind of conversation that helps you, if you're finding things in scripture that you haven't seen this way before, please consider liking the video and hitting subscribe and let me know in the comments what's landing. It genuinely helps the channel reach the people who need it. Now, back to where we were. Because we're about to look at something that's been happening underneath this entire picture from the beginning. Now sit with what you've just seen. Made in his image, brought into his family, commissioned to represent him in the world. That's what humanity is. And here's something worth noticing. Every system that isn't the gospel has to take something from this. Either the dignity or the kinship or the commission. They can't have you carrying all three. Some strip the image at the root. Humanity is just a clever animal, an accident, a project of someone else. Nothing patterned, nothing reflected. Some leave the image standing, but take the family. You can serve God, you can obey God, you can submit to God, but you can't call him Father. Some leave the family in place, but hollow out the commission. Humanity isn't there to represent anyone, just to perform, to produce, to function until the function runs out. Different systems, different pieces taken, but none of them can leave the picture whole, because the whole picture leads somewhere they can't follow. So where does the whole picture lead? It leads to a question that should have stopped the ancient world cold the moment it was first whispered. And a question that should still stop us cold today. If humanity is what we've just said humanity is, made in the image, brought into the family and commissioned to represent, what does it mean that God himself stepped into their image? Let me show you something. Hebrews 2, verse 14. Listen to what the writer says. "Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death." He too shared in their humanity. Hold that. Then verse 16. "For surely it is not angels he helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason he had to be made like them, fully human in every way." Now, in the older translations, the King James preserves it. That verse reads differently. "For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham." The Greek word there is epilembenete. It means to lay firm hold of, to take on the nature of. Christ did not take on the nature of angels. He laid hold of the nature of the image bearers. John Owen saw this in the 1660s. In his great commentary on Hebrews, he stops at this verse and presses in on it. The bridge into salvation was not built by Christ at the incarnation. The bridge was already there. The bridge was the image. Because we are spirits patterned after the Spirit who made us, and we wear bodies of flesh and blood, the Son could step into that pattern. He could take on what was already shaped like him. The incarnation isn't God forcing something foreign into his creation. The incarnation is the original stepping into the resemblance that was patterned after him from the beginning. Watch this. Colossians 1, verse 15. The Son is the image of the invisible God and the firstborn over all creation. The Greek word here for image is icon. And here's the thing. Icon is the exact same word the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, uses to translate the word tselem in Genesis 1:26. The word for the image humanity is made in is the same word Paul uses for what Christ is. We are made in the icon. He is the icon. We are patterned after the resemblance. He is the resemblance. This is the verse Arius used in the 4th century to argue that Christ was created. Arius looked at this verse, firstborn over all creation, and said, see, he was the first thing made, a high creature, glorious, but still a creature. The early church looked at this verse and said, no. Firstborn here doesn't mean first made. It means, it is a Hebraic idiom. It means preeminent, first in rank, the one who holds the inheritance, the one through whom all things come. The firstborn isn't the first creature. The firstborn is the heir. The Son is the icon eternally, not as a reflection that God made and called his own, as God himself. Nicaea in 325 settled this. Athanasius led the charge, and the church has held the line on this verse ever since, because the moment you turn Christ into a creature, the whole mechanism collapses. There is no image stepping into the image. There is just a high creature pretending to bridge a gap that he can't actually bridge. But the image did step in, and the gap was bridged. And once you see that, the whole structure of the gospel snaps into focus. Sin was committed by image bearers against the one whose image they bear. The price was to be paid by an image bearer, because angels can't substitute for what they were never patterned after. But no fallen image bearer has ever qualified. It's never qualified. It can't qualify, because we are all under the same condemnation. The only one who could atone was someone who was both the image and the true image bearer, the original and the resemblance in one person. That's what Bethlehem is. The icon stepping into the icon, the image wearing the image, to redeem what has been distorted, to pay what was owed, to carry the gravity perfectly on behalf of those who couldn't. And then he does something else. He doesn't drop the humanity. Most people miss this. They think of the incarnation as something temporary. God put on flesh for 33 years, did the work, paid the price, and then went back to being pure divinity, as if the body was a costume. He didn't. The risen Christ has a body. He ate fish with the disciples on the shore. He let Thomas touch the scars. He ascended in human form, and right now, at this moment, there is a human seated at the right hand of the Father in heaven. Sit with that. One of us is there, not as a temporary visitor, not as a guest in a throne room, seated at the right hand of power, holding the position open. Humanity didn't just get redeemed, humanity got exalted. Because the one whose image went down into the image bearers and then carried the image bearers back up with him, he didn't shed the flesh once the work was done. He kept it forever. He bound himself to the image bearers permanently. This is now, and there will always be a man on the throne. That is what the gospel does. Not just forgive you, not just bring you into the family, lift you up, because the one whose image went down didn't come back alone. This is the gravity of what humanity is. Not just made in the image, not just brought into the family, not just commissioned to rule, bound by the Son to himself in his own flesh to the throne of heaven. Because here's what's underneath all of this. The image isn't just what we are. The image is what makes everything possible. Strip the image, and you don't just lose a human dignity, you lose the incarnation, you lose the atonement, you lose the family, you lose the gospel itself. There is no mechanism without it. This is why the image of God in man is not a side doctrine. It is not a nice idea Christians say to feel good about themselves. It's the foundation that everything else stands on. And he carried it perfectly for us. So let's bring this home. You are made in the image of God, not in form, in spirit. You are a spirit patterned after the Spirit who made you. And that resemblance cannot be stripped from you, not by failure, not by weakness, not by age, not by anyone's opinion of you, not by your own opinion on a bad day. It lives in what you are. You are made for the family of God. Adoption is real because the image is real. The Spirit can recognize his own resemblance in you and speaks Son into your spirit. The Father says, that one is mine. And the inheritance is yours. You are commissioned to represent him, to carry his character into the world, to rule with justice and mercy, to reflect the one whose image you bear. In every place he has set you. The commission was dropped in Eden, it was picked up at the empty tomb, and it's been given back to those who are found in him. And the one who is the image, the original icon of the invisible God, stepped into the image bearers to redeem what was distorted. He took on the nature of those who he came to save. He carried what they couldn't carry, what we couldn't carry. He paid what we couldn't pay. He brought us home, and he didn't come back alone. Go back to where we started. Then God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. The same word you've heard 100 times, but not the same as before. This is what you are. The gravity of what you were created to be. Sit with that. And if you think about it, we live in an age where humanity is building things that talk, things that reason, things that create or look like they're creating. And it's making a lot of people nervous. But everything that AI does is function. What you've just heard isn't about function, it's about being. AI isn't an image bearer because it can't be. Image bearing isn't about what you can do, it's about what you are. Something to sit with.